Just to the northeast of Milan resides a football club who are currently having their most successful period in their history. A lot of that success comes down to a man who looks a little bit like a Bond villain, and a man who some might argue was a bit of a villain as well. So today we're talking about Monza and Raffaele Palladino. Monza are in their second season in Serie A, having been backed by the recently deceased former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi. They were in Serie C as recently as the 2019-20 season and gained 2 promotions in 3 seasons, with their first season in Serie A in their history being last year. Palladino guided Monza to an 11th place finish last season, 21 points clear of Spezia in the relegation playoff in 17th. But how are things going this year? Well, Monza are currently 9th. They're currently 3 points off the European spots and have only lost 3 games so far this season to Roma, Inter and Atalanta. They are very much establishing themselves as a mid-table Serie A side. Expected goal difference has them at about 10th in the league, which is the difference between the expected goals that they create and the expected goals that they concede. Understat's expected points model also has them at about 10th, which shows that they are generally performing at about the same level as their position in the table suggests. And admittedly, Monza do have some financial backing, having previously been owned by Berlusconi, but they are very new to this league, so the start that they have made to life in Serie A has been really impressive. But who is Raffaele Palladino, the man that's guiding them to this position in the league? Well, he was a bit of a journeyman winger in Italian football in his playing days. He amassed nearly 300 appearances across 10 teams, and he was capped 3 times by Italy. He started at Benevento before moving to Juventus, going on to play over 50 times for them, and both Genoa and Parma, before he finished his career at Monza. And this was where Palladino transitioned into management and coaching. He became a youth coach after retiring at Monza in 2019, and became the under-19s manager, what's called in Italy the Primavera side, in 2021. He was then promoted to head coach in September 2022, following the sacking of the then manager Giovanni Stroppa after Monza had lost their first 5 games of the season. And in his first game, aged 38, he'd never managed a senior professional game before. Palladino's Monza beat Juventus 1-0. Palladino was also mentioned alongside 3 other Italian managers to potentially take over at Napoli at the end of the season, that being Vincenzo Italiano at Fiorentina, Francesco Farioli at Nice, and Thiago Motta, who's at Bologna. But how does Palladino's Monza team play? Well, he mentions Giampiero Gasperini as one of his main tactical inspirations, and he plays in not a too dissimilar style to how the Atalanta manager wants his team to play. Monza start typically in a 3-4-2-1, as seen in their recent game against Cagliari. They're a relatively fluid team with rotations that occur both in and out possession that we will look at in a minute. They then look to quickly play through the middle third of the pitch, either into their wing-backs, advanced midfielders, or sometimes into the striker. And that's shown in the fact that Monza in Serie A this season have the 3rd most touches in the attacking penalty area, the 3rd most in the defensive penalty area, but only the 9th for the middle third. So it really does show how they like to get through that middle third of the pitch really quickly. They're also 6th for possession in Serie A, above the likes of Bologna and Atalanta. They're 7th for progressive passes, and have attempted the most medium passes between 15 and 20 yards in Serie A, which links to the really wide nature that they do like to have in how their team set up, and we'll look at that again in a minute. These are all key indications of how Palladino wants his Monza team to play. So we'll look at now a couple of ways that we can see that through screenshots that I've got from the Inter Monza game at the start of the season. So this is what you typically see when you see Monza building up from the back. You have the back 3 here, the 2 deeper midfielders, the 2 more advanced midfielders, the wing back on the far touchline. You can't even see the other wing back who's on this touchline here, and the striker up front. And typically Monza like to rotate the ball through the centre backs, play from side to side to try and find areas to play into the midfield, sometimes into the wing backs, sometimes into the strikers like I said. And they typically look to play those balls into the wing backs, advanced midfielders, strikers, to try and bypass that midfield area, as we spoke about with having more passes in the defensive and attacking third and quite a few less in the central third. And the 2 banks of 2 midfielders often rotate to create space for those balls to be played in more direct into the more advanced areas. But in this case, Pablo Mari carries the ball further forward, who's the central centre-back here. And you can see he brings the ball forward. They've been playing the ball about a little bit more, which has moved into about a little bit. And it's resulted in this centre-back here, who's actually moved into a more advanced area, which has moved Pessina out into a wider zone. Gagliardini has dropped into a more central area. Colpani's moved into here, and Pablo Mari plays the ball out wide to the wing back, which is what they like to do. They like to avoid playing too much in this middle third and get the ball into the attacking area as quickly as they can. And as the right wing back receives the ball, Colpani makes this run around the outside. We'll talk a bit more about Colpani a little bit later, but this is what they like to do. These 2 wider midfielders like to make these overlapping and underlapping runs to create these rotations that Monza really thrive on. And this screenshot here also shows the build-up shape. So you've got the 3 at the back, the 2 slightly deeper midfielders, the 2 more advanced midfielders, the wing backs really wide, and the striker up front, obviously. So the distances between these players is the really key point. So we said earlier when they have the most 15 to 20 yard passes
in Serie A this season. The distances between the players is really that reason for why they do have that. You can see the distance between the midfielders, even the centre-backs is really wide. Monza like to play through those lines really nicely. Say, for example, a lot of the time they'll play the balls more direct into Colpani or into these more advanced midfielders to get up the pitch and really kind of avoid playing too much in that middle third of the pitch. And this is an example here of that more direct passing. So you've got Monza playing out here from a goal kick, the left centre-back taking it here and plays it across to D'Ambrosio on the right-hand side here. And they play it into that corner, slight triangle in this area, and the ball gets played into the right wing-back, who then plays the ball long into the striker. The striker chests it down into Colpani, so you can see they've already bypassed, 5 Inter players there, so they've got past that press. Colpani receives that ball, plays it into Pessina, and Pessina sets up Caprari with the pass on the right-hand side, and Monza are out. They're through, and Caprari drives with the ball to the edge of the box, plays a really nice 1-2 with the striker to get in behind. You can see the 1-2 there, plays it in behind, plays it across the box, and Monza create a really nice chance from playing really direct from out the back. So they're not just lots of intricate passes. They really like to play not too much in that middle third and play really vertical and hit teams, create those transitions and hit teams on the break, because they do have really nice progressive carriers, as we said earlier. They're really high progressive carry numbers, and that's what Raffaele Palladino wants from his team. He wants them to carry the ball, and Caprari is a great example of that, particularly in this chance that we've just seen. And this is an example that helps to show the rotations that Palladino wants from his team. So you've got Pessina here alongside Gagliardini in the two deeper midfielders. You've got Caprari and Colpani here, the two advanced midfielders. You can see the structure that Monza like to have in the build-up with the wing-backs really wide and the striker in the centre. And Pessina plays this long ball across into here, into this area. So it really is a strength of Monza. They're not too concerned with keeping the ball. They like to take risks in possession and switch the ball and take advantage of the areas of space that they are creating. And so it's Colpani that actually receives the ball here. And you can see that they've got space to attack. It's a 2-on-1 in this area if Colpani gets the ball out of his feet quickly. He plays the ball into Caprari into the right back on this side. It's not Caprari, sorry, but the right back on this side, and plays a 1-2. And you can see that Colpani's making that underlapping run inside. A key part of how Monza like to play. They like to play with those driving runs. And Colpani's a great example of this. The right wing back plays the ball into there and a chance comes of it. So it really shows how, sometimes not playing too short passes. They like to have those medium range passes to take advantage of the space that they're creating with the width of the structure that they have, and how the two advanced midfielders like to rotate and underlap and overlap to really, exacerbate the space that they are creating with the movement that Palladino wants from his team. And then a slightly clearer example of the rotations can be seen when we follow this right centre-back here. I believe is Armando Izzo. So Monza are late in the game here, 82nd minute, they're 2-0 down. So they're going to be a little bit more brazen with how they're going to play and be a little bit more attacking. And it helps to show a little bit more clearly how Palladino wants his team to play in kind of the purest form. So Paolo Mari has the ball and they're progressing further forward, and Izzo makes this run into this space here. So the right centre mid receives the ball, and you can see that Izzo is occupying the marker that would typically be, it's Barella in this case, that would typically be pressing the man here. So it means that he's occupying and allow him to drive into that space. And you can see that Izzo, he ends up over here, so he continues his run and even creates space for the right wing back here because he's gone beyond him and is occupying that left wing back, allowing the right centre mid to get all the way into the attacking third, into the end of the middle third of the pitch, and create space for him to do so. And it shows how those rotations allow Monza to take advantage of that width that they create. So when we look at how Palladino wants Monza to set up, it's very much man-to-man. In this example, they're playing against Inter again, so they've got that 3-5-2. As you can see, the two up front here is one of the left attacking midfielder. Colpani drops into a midfield 3 here because he's monitoring, that is Mkhitaryan there, monitoring Mkhitaryan. And Caprari in this game was tasked with monitoring Çalhanoğlu, and then it kind of just works from there. They rotate dependent on the position that they're in. You see that Pessina's keeping an eye on Barella over there, who is his man generally, but he's trying to keep that shape, trying to keep that formation, which Monza like to do. Now, one of the weaknesses as a squad that Monza do have is that the 3 centre-backs that they use aren't particularly quick, and sometimes the tactics that Palladino implements do sometimes work against them when their centre-backs don't have the speed to kind of recover. An example of that shown here, where you can see Monza have the ball very much in Inter's territory, and Kyriakopoulos receives the ball and plays a couple of 1-2s and ends up all the way inside the Inter penalty area, but then loses it. Barella then picks up the loose ball, and Inter, as they tend to do, then wanted to hit the team on the counter-attack. And the problem that Monza have here is that they committed so many bodies. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players who have the potential of being cut out of the game by one forward pass that Barella can play into Marcus Thuram to set up the counter-attack, which he does do. And you can see the problem that Monza have here is they're basically 4-on-4 with the 3 centre-backs slightly exposed. They're not overly quick. You've got D'Ambrosio, Mari, and I believe that's Calderola on the left-hand side as well. They're good central defenders, but they don't have the pace to really counteract the attack that's going on here from Inter. Marcus Thuram kind of takes advantage of this and runs inside and then makes a feint to go to the outside and gets free space to run into. Inter don't really create a chance from this, but it's quite a threatening position to be in when Monza do kind of deal with it. They've got the 3 at the back that do deal with the situation, but they can be exposed, particularly when you've got direct runners against teams that are really good on transition. It's an area that Monza are slightly weaker. This is another example of the weaknesses that Monza do have in the way that Palladino sets the team up. The right centre mid has the ball here, and the right wing back is making this run in behind, and the ball's played into this sort of area, and it goes into the right attacking midfielder, who plays a blind pass into this area here. And the problem is that would normally work, but the striker's made a move forward here because he thinks he's going to turn or play the ball like really close around the corner, and that means that Inter receive the ball really quickly, and then the distances that are in between Monza's structure when they're playing, you can see that the problem that you have is this massive gaping hole in the centre of the midfield. And this isn't necessarily a structural weakness of Palladino's tactics, it's more the implementation that the players are using. So you've got a massive space that the centre back here, I believe that's Damian, could just play straight through into this area. I think he plays it into Barella. I think that's Mkhitaryan actually. And he can just play the ball forwards. And the problem is that he can then play this ball out wide to Arnautovic, who's making a run off in behind, takes on the player, admittedly does quite well to beat him, steps over, moves into this area, plays the ball across, and then Lautaro Martinez is at the back post to tap that ball in. So it really exposed, in this case, a weakness of Monza's quite advanced vertical football in that they're playing really quickly up the pitch. Admittedly, they're chasing the game a little bit, this being the 75th minute and being 1-0 down away at Inter. They're going to take a few risks, but when you're playing really quickly through that middle third and it doesn't quite go to plan, and when the distances are so far away from the players that you're using, you show in this first example, the distances between this sort of space here, admittedly there's a centre-back a little bit further behind, but there's no one in this central space, and that means that you are going to get exposed, as they do in this case, when balls can be played straight through the middle of your team, and a good team in transition, Inter in this case, can really exploit that. They're just a couple of weaknesses of how Palladino's tactics are implemented at Monza. But one thing that's been a real shining light of their performance so far this season has been their goalkeeper, Michele Di Gregorio, who has been probably the best goalkeeper in Serie A so far this season. He has the 6th highest post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed per 90. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but I'll explain it in a second, in Europe's top 5 leagues. So that means that he is the 6th highest for overperforming the XG that he's conceding. So he is saving more goals than he should have. This is not something that's just happened overnight for Di Gregorio. He has overperformed his post-shot XG over the last 4 seasons, including 2 in Serie B. And in his 4 years combined at Monza, in 113 games, he's overperformed his post-shot XG by 14.2. So to give you a comparison of how well Di Gregorio is doing, Alisson, who according to the stats had his best goalkeeping performance of his career and across Europe's top 5 leagues last season, with a post-shot XG plus or minus per 90 of 0.27. So Alisson that season saved around 10 more goals than he should have done over the course of the season. If Di Gregorio keeps currently saving his current per 90 post-shot XG, which is 0.41 goals per 90, if that were to continue, which is obviously unlikely, or would be a real feat, at 0.41 for the rest of the season, he would save over 15 goals for Monza, which is a massive overperformance and would be a real benefit to Monza, obviously performing better than they did last season. And that would be the largest overperformance since Opta began collecting post-shot XG data. Really shows how well Di Gregorio is doing, and given that someone like Vicario went from Serie A last season to a high-level team in Tottenham from Empoli, you can see Di Gregorio might be following a similar path, even considering he's in the 97th percentile for save percentages, is really good with his feet, has a high percentile of touches in the 92nd, and he is an all-round top goalkeeper, and I really wouldn't be surprised if we saw him take that similar route to an elite club in the summer. And here you can see an example of Di Gregorio's passing. He plays a really nice through ball straight through the middle of Inter's press and really releases Monza to play their vertical football really nicely, and it's good to see that Palladino is sort of taking advantage of a goalkeeper who has those skills. So how is Palladino performing, and could we see him going to a bigger club in the future? Well, he is an exciting new manager, only in his second senior season as a manager, as you mentioned. He does have some interesting tactical ideas, taking that sort of adaptation on Atalanta and Gianpiero Gasparini's sort of three at the back. It might be might be too soon for a jump to a bigger club like Napoli at the moment, but he definitely should be in the conversation alongside, slightly below, given that he doesn't have as much experience, but like Motta and Vincenzo Italiano, in that he is an exciting Italian manager in Serie A, and that's always something to be proud of. I suspect that if Palladino can continue to get the similar sort of performances out of Monza, he might be subject of interest from a few more clubs if he can keep those performances going. And with a solid core of talent, with the likes of Copani, Pessina and Di Gregorio, this is definitely a team who can achieve to get, upper mid-table. You can imagine is the heights of this Monza side. If they can challenge for Europe, then it really would be an impressive second season. But it will be interesting to see where Palladino does end up in the future, maybe even in the next Bond film. It's a shame that he doesn't have a midfield diamond, but you can't have everything. Let me know what teams you'd like to see me cover in the future. It's quite an interesting look at Monza. I haven't really seen much of them this season. If you've got any other little bits that are quite interesting about them that then let me know in the comments. But yeah, thank you for watching. Like if you enjoyed it, and hope to see you in a video very soon. See you later.